Hello friends, here is a new story. I hope you all like the video and subscribe to my channel. Now here is summary. When they were mortal they were in love, now they are gods that are twins with a child. What will Artemis and Apollo do when the lines are not so simple anymore? Naruto will still be a Jinchuriki but will be raised by the twin archers in the PJO world, not Kahona. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Chapter 23, saying hi to Grams for the first time after the Furies left with Hades' symbol of power, the Helm of Darkness. The questers were left on an empty beach just keeping it. What happened? Naruto had to use the power of the mist to convince all the mortals at the beach that a typhoon was incoming, so evacuations were heeded. Percy took a glance at the right beach and thought, typhoon, right. Although I suppose based on Naruto and Ares' fight it's not that much a lie. The beach looked like it had been destroyed by a natural disaster, especially when Ares had used his godly form against Naruto. Okay, first of all, wow, you actually beat Ares even when he used his godly powers and assumed godly form. Grover yelped in admiration as Naruto rubbed his head nervously. Well, it was as much luck as anything else, Naruto claimed with a laugh as the group gave him disbelieving looks. Luck? You were like super fast in swordsmanship and then you were like, I don't know, an acrobat using your body to do punches and kicks. Percy shuddered, trying to wrap his head around the fight he just witnessed between his friend and his godly cousin. Annabeth was speaking about 1,000 words a minute as Naruto gave her an amused look, waiting for her to slow down. You were like golden and super fast and powerful, Grover recalled as he remembered Naruto form having a golden aura which made it so Ares could not properly defend himself even when Naruto was unarmed and just using kicks and punches. And 2. Naruto smiled lightly, remembering getting the sweet taste of a little payback after Ares insulted his mother and implied that his father forced himself onto her when they were mortal. Then Ares yelled and turned into a supernova which made us behind the barrier still have to look away or be incinerated. Percy recalled with a shudder as even when not looking at Ares he still felt like there was a sun blasting near his body. It's called divine form, Percy, Annabeth reminded him as Percy rolled his eyes that Annabeth need to be right all the time. The barrier was called for a Yang formation barrier. Mom and Dad says it likely the most powerful barrier ninjutsu in existence, Naruto added as he used 4 shadow clones to create the barrier while he fought Ares seriously one-on-one. What he did mention to them was it usually took 4 cage-level shinobi just to create the barrier, while he managed to create and maintain the barrier by himself. And 3. Naruto had tried to teleport the questers away from the fight at the beginning using the flying Rasenjutsu, but to his annoyance he could not teleport outside the battlefield, so he was forced to use a high-level barrier so his friends could be safe while he fought seriously. It must be those damn fates your parents complained about. For some reason they wanted those friends of yours to watch that fight, so their presence interfered with the flying Rasen ability to bend space-time, Kurama added inside a seal as Naruto frowned. Must be. I could feel my markers, even the ones far away, I just couldn't move to them, Naruto admitted to Kurama. He was instantly able to go to the marker he left in the kunai to Percy despite being in the underworld. He was also able to teleport to his shadow clone a fair distance away from Ares, but he felt some kind of force holding him in place when he tried to teleport far away from the beach. His mom and dad had told them gods could overpower demigods using the same element or domain within this world due to having far more control over the domain itself. Naruto could only assume that the fates could somewhat influence or prevent things that deviated too far from the predetermined path. And 4. Anyways, I don't want to be fighting any more gods anytime soon, so are ready to finish your quest or not? Naruto joked lightly as the group blinked before laughing when they realized they still had to deliver the Master Bolt back to Zeus himself. So, any ideas on how we get to New York City before tomorrow? Percy asked nervously as even with Naruto's help, they only had less than 2 days before the summer solstice. Maybe we can take a plane? Naruto has enough money, right? Grover suggested as Naruto frowned while Annabeth and Percy shook their head frantically. Take a plane? The very thing you guys warned me never to do at the beginning of the quest? Percy asked incredulously. Naruto had to give it to Percy for being smart enough to remember the warning, as his grandfather was particularly short-sighted when it came to the children of his brothers crossing into his domain. And 5. What? We have the Master Bolt. Surely Lord Zeus wouldn't blow it up below with us, right? Grover asked, only to get distant thunder booming in response. Meanwhile, shortly before on Olympus, the Olympians were still in shock at the thought of a mere mortal defeating one of their own when Ares, despite being against their laws, used his divine form and full power. However, Artemis and Apollo could not be prouder of their son, as Artemis, in a rare show of emotion, had elected to sit next to her twin in his throne during the fight with Ares. Normally Aphrodite would have had a field day with news, but for once she focused on anger at her kinda boyfriend Ares trying to eliminate her newest favorite child Naruto Uzumaki. And 6. Our boy did it. He really completed tailed beast mode for real, Artemis said with proud tears flowing down her face as Apollo quickly wiped the tears away but tried to cough in his hand when Artemis gave him a weird look. I saw it too. He never could use that level of power even during training, but he actually evolved during his fight with Ares and mastered it, Apollo noted with pride. Clear. Even when Naruto was trying to run away from Apollo to get on the quest, Naruto was unable to use the full power of Kurama, but he managed to use it when Ares was using full power. And 7. Luckily for them, this quick exchange was missed by the Olympians as they were still gaping at the damage Naruto did when battling Ares and how Naruto actually beat a full-powdered god into submission. Flashback to Naruto fighting Ares. Naruto was in chakra mode, calmly batting away the attacks of Ares with his sword, unable to penetrate the cloak's protection. Naruto sent a kick with his cloak activated, sending Ares flying, golden blood spewing out of his mouth as he skidded across the beach. He only stopped when Naruto ran besides him and jumped, sending a drop kick as Ares coughed more blood as another crater appeared. Give it up. You can't win, Ares. Like Lady Athena says, there is no honor in fighting a pointless battle, Naruto said calmly, looking down at Ares. Ares coughed and glared at the blonde with hatred in his eyes. Honor? I don't care what that old bitch says. A fight is a fight, and it only ends when one side is wiped out. Ares spat at, swinging his sword at Naruto, who calmly flipped backwards to dodge the strike. Screw the rules. I am killing you if it's the last thing I do, Ares announced as his form started to glow, making Naruto eyes widened. The Naruto inside the barrier with Annabeth, Percy and Grover could sense the buildup of energy and quickly reinforced the power of the barrier as he sat down and focused. Guys, look down. Even with the barrier, if you look directly at Ares' form, you will be burned and probably end up in a coma, Naruto warned as the questers quickly looked away from Ares and the real Naruto. Meanwhile, Ares shone a brilliant light of golden light as he transformed into his true divine form and grew to 50 feet tall. Ha! That poor brat of Artemis surely perished now, Ares shouted as he looked out and saw the barrier still up, making him growl. HMPH. I guess I got it to personally crush those heroes myself, Ares mused until he felt a stinging on his cheek, and to his shock, Naruto in his cloak was still there glaring at him. You still have to get past me if you want my friends, Naruto declared as his chakra arm retracted while he glared up at the full-power immortal god. Impossible! No mortal can stand to look at a god while we are in our true forms. Even a demigod would perish just staring at me, let alone a mere mortal, Ares bellowed, stomping the beach underneath him. Naruto smiled to himself and declared, I guess that makes me not just a mortal, huh? As he looked at his arms while in chakra mode. Next, several minutes of high-speed battle where Ares' giant form was capable of matching Naruto in chakra mode, with neither of them able to get any real damage to the other, but the beach was destroyed by the impacts of their blows. Ares swung his massive sword once again, which Naruto blocked with several chakra arms before he flipped over and slid back several feet, looking at the annoyed Ares. I gotta finish this soon or this entire place will be destroyed, barrier or no barrier, Naruto whispered as he looked around to see this former beach already starting to turn into a war-torn battlefield. HMPH. You might be able to fight me on par, but can your friends? Ares taunted as Naruto looked back at his friends where the barrier kept the damage to them away, but the field around them was getting destroyed. Ares used this moment where Naruto was distracted to kick Naruto away, sending him flying past the barrier as he grunted before he eventually flipped up and came to a stop. Naruto then saw Ares hold a massive amount of flames in his hands, which grew bigger and bigger. He grinned in a crazy way before tossing the ball of fire not at Naruto but at the barrier as Naruto's shadow clone eyes widened, not knowing if the questers would survive with the barrier. Time seemed to slow down for Naruto as he sprinted at the ball of fire as he kept getting faster and faster until he started to glow a golden light. Ares was laughing until he saw a golden light zoom at his massive fireball, and the fireball itself seemed to vanish. Ares looked around before he turned around and saw what appeared to be Naruto in a golden light holding the fireball, except it now was the size of his hand being forcibly compressed down in size. Naruto was looking up at Ares before he squeezed his hand, causing the fireball to collapse on itself and disappear. Naruto was standing on top of the water calmly. Ares growled before running at Naruto at full speed, slashing down at Naruto with both hands on his true sword, a representation of his godly symbol, only for Naruto to appear to disappear and appear above Ares as he was swinging. Ares blinked before he felt several blows hit him, making him stagger as his head was forced down. Naruto landed on top of the water again as Ares growled, sending a massive fist at Naruto directly. Naruto seemed to slip past Ares before Ares coughed up blood as his entire body in his divine form was sent flying deeper into the water as he fell over onto his back. To the shock of the gods and Ares, Naruto was bathed in golden light before it started to solidify, revealing a taller, more mature Naruto with the same cloak as before but more refined. Instead of a golden yellow flame-like appearance, it manifested as an evolved version of that mode with vastly more power and speed. His pupils became slitted, the whisker-like markings on his face became thicker to resemble the trigram, and the chakra shroud's shape altered to resemble a full-length Hari, similar to the one Minato usually wore. As the gods were gaping at the power shown by Naruto, Artemis and Apollo could barely contain tears of pride and love. They looked at each other and spoke without saying it out loud. Apollo. Artemis mouthed out as she looked at Apollo in the eyes. Yes? Apollo said, simply holding back a grin. He's done it, hasn't he? Artemis said with pride. Yes, he has. Apollo confirmed with a small nod. Our boy really is one of a kind. He did what we failed to, and what Vegeta would unlikely be able to do with Kurama. Artemis said proudly. This power and radiant glow. It can only be one thing. It's the true and complete form of Kurama-tailed beast mode. Apollo declared to Artemis through their link. In 7.5, Aphrodite was giggling to herself when she saw still images of Naruto, using Hephaestus TV technology, in golden hunky cloak form as she liked to call it. It turned out when Naruto used the full power of the cube in a human shape, it caused Naruto's young body of 12 to mature instantly into a 16-year version of himself to handle the power. Little to nobody's surprise, Aphrodite definitely approved. In 8, I like and approve. I cannot wait till my new favorite project is at old for real. I mean, like, yum. Now we just need one of my daughters like Silena or Piper to snag him for life and I will have a happy ending. Maybe both? So many plans he had. Aphrodite mumbled in delight as her romantic plans for Naruto Uzumaki were forming in her head. Poseidon smiled in satisfaction as he offered many times in the fight to subdue Ares himself, especially when he started to draw dangerously close and eventually use full power against mere mortals. Only his brother's expressed judgment of not intervening during the quest stayed his hand. He had thought Zeus was being a brat and hypocrite for allowing Ares to do what he liked during the quest only because he was part of the quest and the prophecy. Hermes and Demeter for once not answering emails or talking about Wheat being shocked to see the power used by Naruto in his fight with Ares. Hera was quiet during all the chatter, but she did have a contemplative look on her face, looking at Naruto as if seeing something new about to happen. Dionysus was quiet and pretending to read his wine book, but if you looked closely a hint of a smile of pride was hidden. Athena was silent, but she was looking down with her eyes flashing as if analyzing a million of scenarios at once. Hephaestus was looking at the screen, was interest with him, grumbling about the possibility of his technology being flawed or if he was actually seeing someone beat the living shit out of his least favorite brother. He was also mumbling that this mortal had his favor for beating Ares. Hestia was once again quietly tending to the heart, but with a massive smile of pride of love of her only godchild being alive and being a true hero in her opinion. Finally, Zeus regained order in the throne room with a loud shout of authority as everyone eventually quieted down for the king. Quiet! Zeus roared in his authority as king of the gods. Peace, brother, your master Bolt is returning after a successful quest, Poseidon said calmly as Zeus nodded. Yes, Artemis and Apollo. How is Ares' recovery going? Zeus asked as most of the gods grumbled, not quite happy Ares had willingly tried to start a war which went well beyond even his domain's perimeters. Father, Ares is recovering like you asked, Apollo said stiffly as Artemis had teleported back to her own throne but had a frown on her own face. His pain? Zeus asked with a neutral expression. He will eventually come back to full strength with enough nectar and ambrosia, but no, we did not instantly heal his non-threatening injuries. Artemis said as Apollo and her resisted, grinning, seeing Ares groan when they dropped his off at his temple. Good. That little upstart deserves some pain before he faces my wrath, Zeus said darkly, planning to punish his bloodthirsty son for not only refusing to return his master bolt after retrieving it but also trying to manipulate him and his brothers for a full-scale war. The way Zeus saw it, he was justified to start a war when needed, but anyone trying to use him would face his wrath. This got grunts of agreement from everyone, including Aphrodite. She did not particularly care her kind of lover wanted to start a war, as she would freely admit she caused Paris and Helen to start the Trojan War. A9, but she was annoyed her lover tried to kill her favorite mortal Naruto at full strength. She still believed he would lead an interesting love life. Here aside but noted it was her role as goddess of family to accept her family, in particular if he was her child, no matter how much a disappointment she personally thought he was. Zeus then soon heard Grover the satyr claim that since they had the Master Bolt they could freely go a plane, which greatly insulted the proud god. What did that satyr say? He plans to extort me with my symbol of power? He should have proud to be allowed the privilege of bringing it me in one piece. Zeus screamed as the room filled with ozone due to Zeus's anger. Most of Zeus's children flinched in their thrones while Hera frowned at her husband's paranoid nature. Peace, brother, I am sure they meant no insult, Poseidon stated, but he did grip his trident in warning as Zeus growled but relented, sitting back on his throne. Father, I am sure my son will find a way to return your master bolt to your satisfaction, Apollo stated calmly, with Artemis nodding her head as Zeus blinked before nodding. The Olympian looked down to see Naruto chastise Grover for the implied insult before, much to most of the Olympians' surprise, Naruto got on his knees and knelt. Lord Zeus, please forgive my friend remarks. He did not mean to insult you, my lord, Naruto said respectfully. Please allow me to use my teleportation technique to transport Annabeth Chase and Grover Underwood to Camp Half-Blood and allow myself and Percy Jackson to teleport to New York to return your Master Bolt. I eagerly await a sign from my lord or another of the Olympians before we make another move, Naruto declared as he continued to kneel, even as Percy and Grover looked dumbfounded. The Olympians looked at the proud Artemis and Apollo, who smiled hugely at their son before Zeus coughed. Well, at least your son knows his manners. I shall allow his requests to be done, Zeus declared with a sparkle in his eyes. He snapped his finger as an eagle appeared at the beach and squawked before disappearing. Back with the questers, when Percy saw an eagle appear out of nowhere, Percy yelped before the eagle gave him a disapproving look and squawked before flying away. Naruto finally stood up with a grin, saying, "Looks like we are about to finish your quest, Percy," Naruto said brightly as Percy looked a bit annoyed. "Yeah, you didn't have an eagle just fly and glare at you," Percy mumbled as Annabeth sighed. "Percy, the eagle is the sacred animal of Zeus, so it would make sense he would send you as a sign," Annabeth said patiently as Naruto crossed his finger, making a single shadow clone appear. "Okay, Grover and Annabeth, grab onto my shadow clone's shoulders and he will teleport you back to Camp Half-Blood instantly," Naruto told them as Grover and Annabeth gave him worried looks. "Are you sure you and Percy will be okay alone? I mean, it is Olympus and everything," Grover asked, worried as Percy did look a bit less confident now. Naruto sent him a reassuring smile and thumbs up. If Lord Zeus was going to blow us up, he would have hid whether we had his Master Bolt or not. The fact he sent an eagle means he is expecting us, Naruto said in a joking tone as Annabeth looked wide-eyed at him. Before anyone could protest, Naruto's shadow clone gently grasped Grover and Annabeth's wrists and vanished instantly. "Well, you ready to meet the most powerful god face to face?" Naruto asked cheerfully as Percy looked at him incredulously. "How can you be relaxed about this? Zeus in the story was the most paranoid god out there, and you keep telling me with a smile on your face it will be a walk in the park?" Percy asked as thunder loomed in the distance. "You need to learn when to keep your mouth shut when talking about gods, Percy. They really do not take insults lightly," Naruto warned him before he made a few hand signs. He used basic Earth-style jutsu to help clear most of the debris from the beach and make it resemble a beach again. "Besides, unlike you, I have been taught my parents my whole life about this day when I meet my grandfather and what to do," Naruto said softly as his eyes looked down, making Percy grimace. Percy felt bad as much as he envied Naruto's life with his parents. It seemed like Naruto was expecting the worst even with two godly parents, while he lived most of his life protected by his mother. Before Percy could say another word, Naruto grabbed his shoulder and they vanished using Naruto's flying ridge into New York instantly. Nobody even blinked an eye when they appeared out of nowhere with people still yelling at each other and carrying on their business. Naruto dragged Percy across the street as he was still gaping at it. It's Miss Percy. Even when you don't manually control it like I did with those people on the beach, it naturally obscures the visions of normal mortals, so strange events fit into their realm of perception, Naruto informed Percy, who nodded dumbly. Okay, that makes sense, but why didn't you teleport us directly to the Empire State Building? Didn't Annabeth say that where it was? Percy asked as they continued their walk across several lanes of traffic with nobody even noticing when Naruto literally walked through traffic, dragging Percy safely. Naruto sighed, resisting the urge to smack his head in frustration. To him the answer was obvious, but he knew Percy was still fairly sheltered in regards to the Olympian side of the world. Percy, I have only to Olympus when I was 1 day old, where my family decided if I lived or died that day. I have never been back to Olympus since that day. I have to make a mark to teleport somewhere, and Zeus would fry me to ashes if I dared to place a marker anywhere on Olympus. Naruto revealed as he took out his special kunai with his flying Raijin formula. Percy flinched when once again he was reminded that, like him, Naruto was considered an animality to the normal demigods. He could not imagine how it would feel to know his parents had to beg for his life when he was just born. Naruto saw the look on Percy's face and stopped, raising a hand. Stop. I don't need your pity, and frankly, if Lord Poseidon had declared you a son before this quest, likely you would have died when you were born. Now at least you have some favor while grandfather, due to being on a quest to recover his symbol of power. Naruto said sharply before he started walking with Percy towards the Empire State Building. Fair warning. Keep your head down and keep your mouth shut unless you're being talked directly to. I am serious, Percy. Lord Zeus already in his mind has many reasons to distrust you, so don't give him a legitimate one, okay? Naruto informed Percy, who frowned but nodded. They soon entered the building, where a lone guard was reading a book about a teen in a wizardry school who barely looked at them when they stopped at his desk. Names? The guard asked in a bored voice when Percy was about to unzip his backpack with the master bolt before Naruto shook his head. Naruto Uzumaki and Percy Jackson. Naruto informed the guard, who looked up from his book with wide eyes. You? The guard yelped, pointing at Naruto, who gave a raised eyebrow. Do you need some proof? I am sure father and mother would love to talk to you directly. Naruto said lightly as the temperature in the room seemed to heat about 1000 degrees instantly. No! That is quite alright. Lord Zeus is expecting you both. The guard said in a rush as he quickly gave the keycard to Naruto, who smiled, waving Percy over. The temperature, strangely enough, became normal as soon as the keycard was given to Naruto. Naruto and Percy soon entered the elevator and pushed the keycard into the slot. It soon flashed and closed the door as Percy and Naruto felt the elevator rise, but no music was heard. Mom always complained about the lame music with the elevator, although gods rarely use the mortal one to reach Olympus. I guess they fixed it or just turned it off. Naruto mused as Percy shrugged, holding onto the bag containing the most powerful weapon in existence. After several minutes the elevators stopped and the doors opened, and both Naruto and Percy gasped at the majesty that was Olympus. It was the most beautiful place they have ever seen, making normal buildings look like toy blocks by comparison. They noticed many stands selling different products, including nectar and ambrosia. There were many handsome men and women who looked wide-eyed and whispered as Naruto and Percy walked by. A particularly pretty red-haired Nod giggled and waved at Percy, who blushed and was about to greet her before being dragged by Naruto. Better to be early than seem like you are wasting Zeus's time, Naruto informed Percy, who grunted but kept walking towards the throne room. They looked at each other before nodding as Naruto slowly pushed the giant doors open, revealing the throne rooms of the gods. The first thing Percy noticed that the thrones were huge, easily being able to fit giant beings like Hades and Ares in their godly forms, but only 2 thrones were occupied at the moment. Zeus, the king of the gods, sat on a simple throne of solid platinum. He wore a dark blue pinstripe suit and had a well-trimmed beard, marbled gray and black like storm clouds. His face was proud and handsome and grim. Naruto noticed his eyes were not the electric blue like Thalia's, but a stormy gray, as if he was about to cause a storm any minute. The god sitting next to him was obviously his brother, just dressed differently. Poseidon essentially looked like Percy down to the same hair and eyes, but just older, but unlike Zeus, his expression showed he smiled far more than his brother. He also had skin that was deeply tanned, hands scarred like an old-time fisherman's. He wore leather sandals, khaki Bermuda shorts, and a Tommy Bahama shirt with coconuts and parrots all over it. Percy resisted gawking when he saw essentially an older, more powerful version of himself sitting in giant size. Poseidon's throne was much simpler than Zeus's, looking like a fisherman's chair with a slot for harpoons. Instead it had a symbol of power, the trident resting near his leg. The gods weren't moving or speaking, but there was tension in the air, as if they'd just finished an argument. The gods turned to the newcomers, making Percy almost gulp, but Naruto reacted first, dropping to his knees. "Lord Zeus," Naruto said respectfully with his head bowed down. Percy instead had knelt to his father with a solemn expression. "Father," Percy said simply as Poseidon gave his son an unreadable expression. Zeus was about to stand up until a stare from his brother made him sit back down. "Humph, at least my grandson knows his manners. I cannot say the same for your son, brother." Failing to address the Lord in his house properly, Zeus stated coolly, making Percy start to sweat. "Peace, brother. It is only right for a son to address his father first," Poseidon pointed out calmly, making Percy relax slightly. "You still claim him despite our sacred oath, brother?" Zeus asked Poseidon angrily, who looked calm despite the tension in the air. "I have admitted my mistake, brother. Now we shall hear what my son and my grandnephew have to say," Poseidon said calmly as Zeus raised a hand allowing Naruto and Percy to rise. Naruto felt bad when he saw Percy's shoulder drop when Poseidon called him a mistake. Naruto gave a bow of respect to the Lord of the Seas, who nodded. "Very well, Percy Jackson, explain your quest to us now," Zeus demanded as Percy nodded and went over every detail of the quest, including the parts he knew about when Naruto joined the quest. Both gods were silent for a minute before Naruto slightly nudged Percy with his shoulder. He shifted his head to his backpack and Percy understood. Percy bowed to Zeus this time before he picked up the backpack laying at Zeus's feet before he walked back next to Naruto. The backpack fluttered before the cylinder of raw power hovered out of the backpack in front of its master, humming with power. Zeus raised his hand and the cylinder rushed to his hand, and as soon as it touched Zeus's hand it transformed into what mortals would think of a lightning bolt. A 20-foot javelin of raw power of electricity, hissing so much power that both Percy and Naruto's hair stood on edge. Meanwhile Poseidon was unaffected by the raw power, besides raising an eyebrow as his brother inspected his symbol of power. To think Ares would actually allow himself to be used like that to start a war, Zeus said thoughtfully, stroking his beard as Naruto shot a glare at Percy when it looked like he was about to make a comment. Luckily for them, Poseidon seemed to share their sentiment. "He is prideful like the rest of our family. He did use his divine form against demigods and a mortal in a fight he was clearly losing. That says much about his lack of integrity, brother," Poseidon pointed out as Zeus' eyes narrowed, but he nodded. "Agreed. We shall punish Ares for his insolence at another time," Zeus declared as Poseidon nodded his head in agreement. "My lord?" Percy asked respectfully, showing tact which Naruto was pleased with. "Yes?" Both brothers answered immediately, but luckily neither seemed to take much offense. "I believe Ares was being used. He mentioned dreams." Percy started explaining about their experience near the pit and his dreams. Zeus was quick to point out Hades, which Percy quickly denied. "No, my lord. Ares mentioned fearing someone in his dreams, and in the pit, we sensed something ancient and evil radiating from Tartarus, almost like something older than the gods," Percy explained. Zeus and Poseidon quickly exchanged words in ancient Greek so fast Percy only managed to clearly hear one word: "Father." To Naruto's more trained ears he heard something along the lines of Poseidon trying to convince Zeus of the evidence pointed out in the quest. Zeus glaring at his brother and claiming that their father was gone forever and would never rise again. Poseidon calling him short-sighted and Zeus saying his brother should leave affairs of Olympus to him. "Enough! We shall not speak of this matter again," Zeus declared, raising a hand when he saw Poseidon about to object. "Yes, my lord," Percy said somberly, quickly seeing his uncle would not budge. "You two have done a great service for Olympus, and I suppose thanks must be said," Zeus said with a frown. Percy decided to pipe up. "Sir, it was not just us." Annabeth Chase and Grover, only to be interrupted when Zeus did a quiet but resounding tap on his throne. "I do not trust you, Percy Jackson, as you could be a threat to my family someday," Zeus said sternly as Percy glanced at the stone-faced Naruto. "However, for the sake of peace I shall let you live and reserve judgment for another day," Zeus added with his stone-faced glaze in place. "Thank you, sir," Percy said, bowing his head. Zeus then turned to his grandson with an emotionless expression as if he was trying to figure something out. "Naruto Uzumaki, rise." Zeus demanded as Naruto dutifully stood up and looked at Zeus with a blank expression. Zeus took a moment to look at Naruto, directly noticing his son's blonde hair and blue eyes staring back at him. He also noticed small tips of his daughter's auburn hair and a sparkle of his daughter's bright silver eyes staring back at him. "My children's child, Leto. What would you do if you were here?" Zeus thought, thinking about his previous lover who granted him 2 immortal children who he loved. In 10, Naruto stared at his grandfather straight in the eyes, like his parents stressed many times when he would eventually have to meet his grandfather in person. After a minute, Zeus decided to speak. "When you were born and brought to here by your parents, I didn't know what to do with you. You were not the act of my daughter breaking her oath, nor a random child born from a random woman being impregnated by my son. You were both a contradiction, being mortal but having the power to potential rival us in time," Zeus said as he stared at Naruto with an annoyed face. Sensing a pause, Naruto bowed his head and said, "I am aware, my lord. My parents told me this story before. Yes, Ares tried to convince me to kill you on the spot so we would not have to worry about you gaining the power of the QB and rising against us, and I was tempted to do so," Zeus admitted as Poseidon frowned but kept quiet. Percy was holding back, wincing when his uncle bluntly said he was going to murder his best friend as an infant. Zeus sighed, rolling his master bolt in his finger absent-mindedly. However, most of the rest of the council did not agree with Ares and thought it would be a sin to carry out this act. My sister Hestia, who has never involved herself in the matters of the council herself, was most passionate about this crime. She declared it would be the same as father eating my siblings when they were born to avoid a prophecy, and it is true. I would be no better than father if I committed this act," Zeus said with tired eyes. 11. Naruto knew who abstained from the vote from his parents but had an idea that a certain wine god would vote no if asked again. "So I relented and spared your life. I even accepted the request of my sister and my children to raise you as they saw fit," Zeus added before gauging Naruto carefully. "Now it appears you have gained the full power of the QB inside of you and even defeated an Olympian in combat at full strength," Zeus said with a frown. "My lord, I only used enough power to subdue Ares and nothing more," Naruto said respectfully as Zeus nodded. "I am aware. I suppose my children's teachings and parenthood have shown true loyalty to Olympus and your friends, so no actions will be needed to be taken today," Zeus declared with a hint of a smile as Naruto bowed his head to hide his relieved smile. Percy resisted grinning at his friend as Poseidon nodded with approval. "Now I shall go to the river Lemos to cleanse my bolt of the impurity of mortals touching it," Zeus said flatly. He stood up and then turned to stare to Percy Jackson as his face was in a frown, as if annoyed. He was not killing Percy today. "Percy Jackson, I shall spare your life today for your help in retrieving what is mine. However, if you dare enter my domain, be prepared to face the consequences of your actions," Zeus told Percy sternly, who nodded his head. He then turned to Naruto, but his face was neutral, but a hint of pride could be seen in his eyes. "Naruto Uzumaki, continue to prove my children's belief in you was not misplaced. Walk the correct path and make your parents proud of you," Zeus said with the tiniest hint of smile on his face. He then walked off his throne and vanished in a flash of thunder. Percy and Naruto let out a sigh of relief as Poseidon just chuckled, getting off his throne and turning into a human size that Naruto was used to with his parents. "My brother has always had a flair for the dramatics. He should have been the god of theater," Poseidon stated with a smirk as Percy coughed to avoid laughing. Naruto just nodded his head at the powerful god. Percy glanced at the god who was his father but also called him a mistake with a look of resignation and bitterness in his eyes. Poseidon appeared to sense his son's emotion as he sighed, asking Percy to look at him. "Percy," Poseidon stated, not quite sure what to say to his newest demigod son. Woe, he admitted he could do very little for up to today. "My lord," Percy stated flatly, getting a sense of pleasure when he saw Poseidon flinch at the name. Naruto stayed quiet, knowing it was not his place to say who was right or wrong, especially when his situation with his parents was different to all demigods. "My lord, may I be excused? It seems like I'm needed elsewhere," Naruto stated politely as he saw Percy give him an unsure look for being left with his father for the first time. Poseidon gave Naruto a grateful look before pointing at the door. "You may indeed. Your parents are eagerly waiting for you outside. Give my regards to them," Poseidon said as Naruto nodded and bowed. As Naruto passed Percy, he patted him on the shoulder, giving him a smile before he walked off. Percy was left standing there with his father trying to ignore the ugly feelings when people said parents to Naruto, knowing it was not Naruto's fault. He had two loving godly parents who put him above everyone else. Sigh. Your mother gave me the same look you are giving me now when I asked her to move to Atlantis with me when I got her pregnant with you, Poseidon admitted as Percy's eyes widened in shock. You may not believe it, but I loved your mother like one in a trillion, and it truly broke my heart when I could not be there for you, my child, Poseidon admitted as Percy looked uncomfortable at his father. Father, it is okay. I did not expect very much when I heard of you, and I do not expect anything now, Percy said bluntly as Poseidon gave him a smile for his cheek. The god could not blame his child for these feelings when he could not do anything to prove him wrong. My lord, what was in that pit in the underworld? Percy decided to ask, trying to avoid asking personal questions to the god. Poseidon was stone-faced as he said, I believe you know what it is. Percy bit his lip in worry. Percy started before Poseidon sent him a stern look of warning. Percy shuddered as it felt much colder for a moment, even with a blazing heart with fire burning. Titans cannot be destroyed any more than gods, my son. Whatever is left in that pit is still alive, trying to get out, Poseidon explained in a tired voice. He is trying to revive father, Percy declared as Poseidon gave him a look which made him mad, as if his father was humoring him. He has tried for many thousands of years, tempting men in their dreams, but he has never risen from the pit even once in all that time, Poseidon said carefully as Percy stared at him incredulously. Now that is enough about that subject. Lord Zeus has declared it off limits, Poseidon said calmly as Percy felt his temper rise. But Percy was about to continue until he reined in his temper, knowing that the god in front of him may be the only one on his side besides possibly Naruto's parents. Poseidon gave him an amused smile before chuckling. You do not like to be restrained, do you? Poseidon asked Percy, who frowned. No, father, Percy admitted. Percy, the sea runs deep in you. That is why you cannot be restrained any more than the sea can. The sea does not accept taking orders just like you, Poseidon told Percy proudly. Percy was speechless as his father described this personality to the T. Maybe I'm not so different from him after all, Percy thought, looking at the god whose eyes were shining with pride and what he hoped was love as well. Poseidon sighed before saying sadly, you have been given a hero's burden from being born, my son, and that is a terrible fate. Percy was about to walk off with feeling angry. His father was basically telling him being born his son was a terrible thing. However, he felt a warm hand on his shoulder as he spun around to see Poseidon looking at him with pride and affection. Percy, no matter what happens from here on now, know this one truth above all else. You are my son and the son of the sea itself. You will always make me proud of you, Poseidon told him honestly as he held onto the shocked demigod's shoulder for a minute. Percy bowed and walked away, trying to avoid the tears brimming in his eyes while wondering how Naruto was doing. I hope you all liked the video. And if you all want the next part of this video, please like the video and comment 3 hearts. Please subscribe to my channel so whenever I upload a video you will notify.